Hi everybody, Alex here from Be a Real Gamer, and I'm here with Deleted from Crimson Gaming.
Hey, how's it going?
We're going to be talking to you a little bit about how to get into competitive Battlefield 4. If you may or may not know this, Crimson is one of the top teams currently in the Battlefield scene on PC. So I figured that nobody better to get it from than, straight from this guy.
Probably the first thing we're going to look at is the config file. To get this, all you're going to do is open up your origin folder, go in the battle wherever you save Battlefield, the game files, and you're going to put in a text document and then you're put in like the following commands, which should be on the screen right now and also in the description, and then you're going to save it as user.cfg. And what these commands do is they completely disable the motion blur effect that happens whenever you get suppressed. It also puts a FPS counter in there, so you know how many frames per second you have, and also it does limit the frames per second in order to help with screen tearing, which is just sort of a quality of life thing when it comes to playing Battlefield. And then from there, another thing you can do is actually disable the auto lean feature whenever you're around corners, so that your soldier doesn't pop out of cover, and then you actually can do proper. You can only look out so much and present so much of yourself to the enemy. And to do that, you're going to go on the documents. You're going to look for Battlefield 4 prof save profile. Use Control F in order to find GS input dot lenient enabled. And you're going to change that from a 0 to a 1. And what that actually disables the auto lean feature, but you still have it when you're trying to lean over cover. So just sort of keep that in mind. And then sort of like since this is all basically just gameplay options and basically the config file is almost completely all graphical options, so it's really not considered cheating or hacking by doing this. Like, you shouldn't think that I mean, it's legal and it's basically everyone can do it, so it's sort of like
It's something that's
that's
in the
the
game.
yeah.
That's something that's just in the game. It's not something that you can get banned from servers from. It's not something that's going to get you in trouble. Origin or Dice is not going to give anybody any trouble for messing with config files.
Yeah.
This is just one of the minor things.
And basically, when it comes down to high level play, it's every little advantage helps. I guess sort of looking at the class setup next, we got the assault class is basically going to be your go-to class for competition. It's the base class that everything else is sort of balanced around. So naturally, it kind of is the obvious choice for competition, especially if it's an infantry only, just because of dem revives, bro. Dem revives. Like, that really does help a lot. I mean, every ticket counts, and if you can't revive somebody, you're kind of useless. And you can always pick up somebody else's kit, so it kind of makes the support class kind of useless. And to be honest, like, everyone uses the same three weapons anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The three weapons that sort of everyone uses is going to be the AK 971, the Scar H, and the Ace 23. Luckily, comparing these is actually quite easy. You can go to a website, it's called simthick.com, and you can actually compare these side by side, and you can sort of see mathematically how they're different. And then basically, we're also going to break it down here in this video to help out. Basically, when it comes to rate of fire, you need to understand when sort of translating how much damage these weapons do. It's actually quite easy for the assault class, for the assault rifles. Every single assault rifle does the exact same damage, except for the Scar H. The Scar H actually does more damage. It does a maximum of 34 damage down to 25. That means at extreme close range, it'll basically do 34% of your health is gone. So basically, it three-shot somebody. Whereas every other weapon does 25 to 18 damage, and that basically, So then basically, when it comes down to translating who has the highest damage, you just basically look at rounds per minute, with the AAK at 900 rounds per minute, and the Ace is actually at 770 rounds per minute. And then, funny thing, the Scar H at 620 rounds per minute, because of its damage model, actually does more damage at extreme close range than the AAK. It's something not a lot of people really know.
I,
And then,
I assume that's because of the fact that it's a 3-shot at close range.
yeah, that's exactly it. Because it's a 3-shot, it actually has a faster kill. This is assuming that every shot connects. So, I mean,
Which is part of the reason why a lot of players do like to favor the Ace, because it is one of the easier guns to handle. In comparison to the other rifles like the AAK or the Scar.
yep, that's basically due to the way the recoil works for these weapons. I mean, the Scar H, it has a .2 pull to the left and the right, and it has like a .5 pull up. But its first shot damage multiplier is actually a lot lower than the other ones, only at a measly 1.6. So that basically means that first shot you multiply it by 1.6, and that's the recoil that you get. It actually has the fastest reload time to sort of make up for the fact that it only has a 20-round magazine. It's got a 2.4 reload when it's empty and a 1.9 second reload when it has a round chambered. Whereas, like, you look at the sort of the AAK, it has that nice defined up and to the right thing. Basically, it's got a .5 pull left, a .4 pull right, a .38 pull up, with a 3 times damage multiplier for its first shot. That's really what gives that AAK the kick. And it also has like the longest reload out of the three at 3.55 seconds for an empty magazine, with 2.8 seconds for a chambered round. Then you look at the Ace, it's got that .15 left, the .25 right, the .36 up, but it only has a 2 times multiplier for its first shot, which really does help. That, along with the lower rate of fire when compared to the AK. I mean, you don't really feel like it's getting away from you. And then, but its reload, I mean, if you run completely dry, the Ace actually punishes you for it by adding an extra second to its reload animation, with a 3.1 second for empty, but only a 2.1 second for if it has a round chambered. So if you let that thing run completely dry all the time and you're not watching your ammo, the Ace really does punish you for it. I mean, you look at the bullet spread too. I mean, basically the Ace sort of has I'd say the Ace kind of has the best bullet spread with the Scar than the AAK. And then just looking at all this information, basically you just need to translate it to what attachments are you going to use. With the AAK, I mean, just because that first shot multiplier, I always like to run the angled grip. And then basically I like to put a muzzle brake on there, just because the compensator, not really necessary for this gun, because it almost consistently always pull to the right, so it's quite easy just to move your mouse towards the left and down. And because of that, that's why I sort of favor the AEK and the Scar compared to the Ace, just because like I know that damage, I sort of know that that recoil, and I've been countering it since Battlefield 3, so I've been using the AEK since Battlefield 3. Like, that was my go-to weapon. So, and then basically when it comes to sights for these weapons, I always say a one-time sight, or like your red dot. And then a lot of things too about competition you need to understand is that you're not going to have any of the battle pack unlocks for these weapons, so get used to using sort of with the AK, I have to use the Kobra sight because that's the only thing that's unlocked for me. I mean, sort of when you look at the Ace, it's basically a jack of all trades. It's a master of none, especially in the damage. It never beats the AEK or the Scar H at any point at any distance for damage done. But because it's basically, like you said, it's basically reliable, so that's why a lot of people like to use it. It's a nice middle ground between the two.
I mean, it's an easy gun to pick up too, and you could kind of make it do what you need to.
Yeah, I mean the Scar H, this is basically meant to be shot in bursts and at longer range. Even though it's got like a slower bullet travel time, it's actually a little bit better just because of its recoil and its slow rate of fire. I mean, that vertical recoil is kind of a non-issue at 620 rounds per minute, let's be honest. So, I mean, basically I like to put on like a compensator and then throw on a stubby grip there or if I'm feeling really, really pro, I might put on a heavy barrel and just put that thing in semi, but that never really happens. So I think that's pretty much everything sort of for the basics of setting up the weapons. I'll probably put in the description sort of like the attachments that I recommend for these 3 weapons, but I'd say these 3 are definitely a good starting point. And then if you're feeling really, really pro, you can start looking at stuff like the FAMAS.
Which can be an absolute nightmare to deal with. If you can handle the recoil, that thing is just mean.
I mean, it's 1,000 rounds per minute. It's the fastest firing, most damage. I mean, the FAMAS out damages everything. But it's that 25 round magazine and that it's reload that really hurts it. I think in pub play, it definitely it hurts a lot, but in competitive play, it's a solid choice. I guess. Do you want to introduce the next thing?
Yeah, I mean, now we're going to be talking about the correct mindset to have while gaming, which is really important if you're doing comp, because it's easy to get really discouraged really quickly.
Yeah, I'd say definitely there's probably three things we want to look at that you sort of want to keep in mind. The sort of the mantra: slow is smooth, smooth is fast. All that matters is the current round, and you're not the best player out there. I mean, if you keep those three things in mind and always keep a positive mental attitude, it really does wonders for your gameplay. Yes, sort of to expand on it. I mean, sometimes things aren't really going your way. The best thing you need to do is with the slow, smooth, smooth, fast is just focus on the task at hand. Don't worry about the next 5 steps that you have to do after this thing. I mean, let's face it, shit goes wrong sometimes, and if you get so caught up in oh my god, I got to do this and this and this and this, and you just start planning ahead and sort of rushing everything out, you're not going to do quite as good of a job as if you just sort of take a breather, sort of step back, go, and just go from there, and just work on that one thing. That definitely does help. And sort of, I mean, once in a while, I mean, recently we actually did have a match that went sort of 3 rounds. And that first round, we basically we lost that round. The other team did not win it, if that sort of makes sense. I mean, we sort of let them win just because we decided to rush it and everything. It was a SIVO match, and then we basically just took a step back, breather, and then the next 2 rounds we fucking dominated them. So that really does help. I mean, you're always going to have that bad round. It's sort of how you react to it sort of defines the good players from the really amazing players, I think.
Is the ability to just put the mistakes behind them back and just let it go and move on?
I'd say that. I mean, you always want to learn from your mistakes, but you don't want to dwell on them. I think is sort of like the best way we could sort of describe it.
Just sort of realize what they did wrong and then put everything else outside of that behind them.
You got to look at, I mean, you got to step back and sort of look at how you're playing through the most unbiased and objective eyes that you can. Mm-hmm. I think that's that's sort of the best way.
It's very easy to not do that.
It's very easy to say, oh my god, this guy's fucking bullshit, motherfucker. I mean,
X, whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, you basically got to look at, I mean, at least with with Battlefield 4, yes, there are some sort of bullshit stuff that happens, but I mean, everyone's sort of playing. You got to understand that everyone's still playing the same game, like the same bugs that you're having, everyone else is having. So it's not just you that gets affected by this, but you just need to sort of step back and say, this. I'm playing pretty bad right now. What can I do to change that? And then I guess that's pretty. I mean, I think that's pretty much all I got to say on the matter.
I mean, there's the common things like just remembering that you're not the best player in the world, and that's something that a lot of people have problems with. You got to realize that when you pub, it's a lot easier to dominate and look amazing when you're playing just with a bunch of random players. But when you're playing in a competitive environment, it's a whole different world.
I mean, even then, your individual skill only counts for so much in a competition setting. I mean, that's also too. I mean, everything has to be top notch when it comes to competition. You got to be great at communicating, a great shot. Your strats and tactics have to be 100%, and you basically have to be able to look sort of assess the situation and assess what your enemy's doing and find their mistakes and exploit them better than how they'll exploit your mistakes. That's sort of like the best way to sort of explain it, I guess. I mean, a lot of competition is pretty much, I'd say, 60% mental is, basically 60% of it, you either win or lose it in your own head. And then the other 40% is execution and skill.
And then there's that other hidden 10% that's the net code.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess moving on, we have your key bindings that you like to talk about. I mean, you want to give us kind of an abbreviated version of that? I guess we could go more into detail with that in the future.
I mean, my philosophy with it, I focus I'm primarily an infantry player, so a lot of it is my right hand, which is my mouse hand. I try to put everything that's combat oriented, that's not movement oriented, onto my mouse, under the keybinds onto my mouse. Like scroll up is gadget 1, is the toggle gadget 1. Scroll down's to toggle gadget 2. You push down on the mouse wheel, and that's to throw my grenade. And then I got 1 to toggle between primary and secondary. Mm-hmm. So, and then 1 to actually change the zoom of the minimap, which I don't think a lot of people really look at the minimap. So it's one of those things that I'm constantly looking at my minimap. So I want to be able to change the zoom and sort of like zoom out, get a bigger picture of what's going on, and then get that nice zoomed in look to what's my immediate threats when they show up on the mini map. And then from there, I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, I still have to use Q spotting, but for pub play, and then sometimes I'll actually use it on competition just to, say, hey, the guy's out there, and if I can get that Q off, great. Otherwise, at least I'll say in comms where the guy is. And then, so that's basically my philosophy is I don't want my left hand fingers to move from sort of their spots on shift, spacebar, WASD. I want to be able to move. I always want my fingers there in order to be able to move and not have to move to press another button to change a weapon or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. It comes from the idea of always being able to move constantly.
Yeah.
And I guess on the hardware side, I guess I could take over here. What you really want to shoot for is for frame rates, as high or, the same as your monitor's refresh rate, or higher if possible. In most cases, that's 60 hertz. If you have one of the nicer, higher-end monitors, it's probably going to be somewhere between 120 and 144 hertz, which basically translates to that many frames per second. If you have more frames than that, then it's kind of a waste, but if you have less frames than that, you're not seeing the game as quickly as you can, and you have things like input delay in the way, which can just be the thing, the difference between you getting the kill or not. If you plan on playing low to medium and you kind of have a budget build, an AMD FX 6300 6-core and a GTX 750 should be fine. We'd probably recommend more if you want to be a top-level tournament player, but you don't have to. If you have a budget build, you can play just fine. If you have a decent budget, something along the lines of like an i5 and a GTX 770 is really solid. And you want to make sure to turn off post-processing, as it can create input lag. Stuff like MSAA, FXAA, AF, and all the other acronyms.
Yeah.
I mean, could you explain what input lag just does, to the player?
Basically, it's sort of like the commands that you press, or like when you move your mouse or anything. Basically, there'll be like a slight delay that'll happen when you before your character starts to move. That's sort of input lag. What we mean by that, and it can happen. Just because the graphics card's working to add all this extra post processing stuff on top of already having processed and created the scene, so it doesn't get to your monitor the exact time that it takes. Other than that, I'd say definitely. I mean, I personally have a 144 hertz monitor. That's because I put out over 100. I put out over 100 frames per second constantly, no matter what. Like my graphics cards and my build puts out at least 100 frames per second. So it actually does help me. It's something that you kind of have to stress to people that, you know, as nice as like the BenEQ and the Asus 120, 144 hertz monitors are, if you're not getting 60 frames per second already, it's kind of a waste of money. You're not going to see an improvement.
Yeah, I mean, the budget build that I mentioned, you wouldn't want to buy one of those monitors. They're about $300 monitors. You want to have a nice, solid system, possibly something with even dual graphics cards to try to run that. But, you know, if you're just playing in pubs and relaxing, you know, you can turn up all the settings and enjoy the game in all of its glory at Ultra. But, you know, if you're in comp play and every kill and every half of every, you know, percentile of a second matters, you want to make sure to get the game as clean as possible. I guess on to peripherals.
Well, I mean, to be honest, there is no really one size fits all solution for things, and basically, when you're looking at a peripheral, you definitely want to do your research on it. You want to look at reviews and stuff, and I mean, Overclock.net and Newegg.com are wonderful sites. Newegg, you can buy and have it shipped directly to your house, so you don't have to go out and go to your local Best Buy and look at their shit selection. Trust me, I've had to look at Best Buy in order to get a headset that I broke against a wall once, and it's their selection's not good. And definitely, unless you live in California and can get to a Fry's Electronics, I mean, it's not really. I mean, there's no real stores for our sort of demographic. That I mean, this kind of person that's watching this video is not going to find a store that has what they need.
Under really rare circumstances, you might, but for the most part, you're definitely not. The places to buy them from would be, you know, your trusted retailers like Newegg, Amazon, NCIX, and a couple of others.
I think is Tiger Direct still good? Because I used to buy from them.
Their prices can be a little iffy. If you could find their prices decently, then it's worth it. Yeah, their shipping and their quality and their customer service is fine. It's just their prices are a little higher than they should be.
Yeah.
And then I mean, there's the whole thing of when you're selecting a mouse that you have to remember that it's your mouse, you know, and DPI over, I don't know, 2000 is just completely a waste. Because
Yeah,
unless you want to move the mouse half an inch and then spin around 3 times, you don't need 400 DPI.
I mean, a lot of people don't really understand what DPI means either. It means dots per inch, which is how many dots it sees in an inch. So, of course, if it's seeing more dots, I mean, it's gonna move. It's gonna think it's moved a little bit more. I mean, higher DPI is more for Twitch stuff, I mean, Battlefield 4 is more of a precision aim. It's definitely more about precision and aiming than it actually is for high DPI. I mean, basically, if you play Counter-Strike, I mean, you play it pretty low DPI. What I'd say probably one thing that might be better instead of DPI is look at the refresh rate of the mouse. But even then, like that doesn't really. What really comes down to is feel and comfort when it comes to a mouse. I mean, if you move it and you feel like it's responsive, then it's a good mouse. And there is no real right answer for what's the right mouse because there's so many different ways you can grip a mouse. I mean, you got the claw grip, the palm grip, the weird ass grips that like only one person uses or whatever. I mean, basically, it also depends on how big your hand is, how big or small your hand is. Which, if you have small hands, you know what they say about guys with small hands. I'm sorry, dudes.
I was gonna say what they say about guys with small hands that need small mice, but.
Oh yeah, that. Sorry. Obligatory dick joke. Check. All right, so
yeah, I mean, when it comes down to what you actually should be buying, you should prioritize the mouse, the headset, and then the keyboard last. You know, the reason for that is because the mouse is the most important peripheral you're going to be using because you're aiming with it.
definitely. I mean and just because the sound design is so good in this game, I mean a lot of people really don't really talk a lot about it, but I mean the sound design's wonderful, and the positional audio actually can alert you to guys that are behind you or on the other side of a wall, stuff like that. I mean that does come into play.
You can, if you're playing, you know, on a small teams map, you can hear different sounds of explosions to know what area the explosion happened in, whether it was indoors or outdoors. The sound of the gunfire changes. Everything is fantastic if you can pay attention to it.
Yeah, I'd say probably definitely when you're looking at a keyboard, I for one am a huge champion of the mechanical keyboard. I think at this point, most PC gamers are all mechanical keyboard. That's the way to go. That's the future. I mean, yes, it's sort of loud and clicky, but the tactile feel alone, and like you definitely do feel the responsiveness to it, I think. And I mean, I personally am a little bit of a Razer fanboy, so I use the Razer Black Widow with the Mamba, or with the Razer Mamba 2012 edition, I want to say, or the 2013 edition for that. But I use it wired. I don't use that gimmicky wireless shit, just because I like the refresh rate and I like the feel of it in my hands, and I love the tactile feel. So I mean, that's definitely where my thoughts are on sort of thing. I've been using Razer for a while now, and it's not to. This isn't a plug to because I'm sponsored by Razer in any way, shape, or form. I wish that would save me so much money on replacing this stuff.
I
But
I mean, I will say this though, while a mechanical keyboard has improvements, if a budget is your issue, it does offer the least amount of improvement over the other peripherals, which is why, we listed it last, in the things to upgrade.
I mean, definitely, it's other games that it's sort of the mechanical keyboard helps more with, like strategy and MOBAs and stuff like that.
I mean, if you're macroing like crazy, that thing's wonderful, but, I mention this because budget is a big thing that we always hear from gamers. Always in our feedback is, what do you think about builds at this price and that price? And, the problem with offering, telling everybody out there to get a $100 keyboard, and I just want to keep it realistic, is it's not going to make you a much better player. It will improve, and it is a much more comfortable keyboard to use. This has been Armchair Warriors, a guide to competitive Battlefield. And I guess let's go ahead with some of the plans that we have for our next episode.
Sort of covering different topics. I think we have a few ideas for future shows, but if there's anything that you guys sort of have questions about that you want us to cover, just sort of leave it in the comments below, and we'll take a look at that, and we'll put that up for you. So I guess thanks for having me, and hopefully I look forward to helping more of the